This program contains dramatic reenactments and material that may be disturbing to some audience members. Viewer discretion is advised.
Spring 1997, South Africa. Police hunting the killer of 7 young Durban women were faced with a difficult task. The area in which the bodies had been found was a vast sugarcane plantation that lay to the west of the city. The killer could come from any one of these suburbs bordering the cane fields, giving the police a huge task to track him down. Dr. Mickey Pistorius was able to give an invaluable insight into the behavior of serial killers, which would help them enormously.
Usually, serial killers would be intraracial. In other words, the victims would be of the same race.
The team could also assume that in order to gain the trust of his victims, the killer was likely to be of a similar age. The investigation now centered on the black townships and squatter camps which bordered the cane fields. But these areas could be very lawless. Police were often shot at by the residents, and they'd become virtual no-go areas for white officers. At their office in Durban, the police began to examine hundreds of previous cases to see if they could identify any more murders as the work of the same killer. They quickly linked the deaths of 3 other young women to the investigation. They'd been killed in identical circumstances, and so the Strangler's grim tally now stood at 10. The discovery of the 11th victim was a significant turning point for the investigation.
In the second week of July, we were very, very fortunate in that a victim had been discovered that had not been damaged by fire due to the harvesting process, and the crime scene had not been visited by any other policing agency. This was very significant to us in that this was the first victim that the entire team was able to see close up and personal.
At last, the team could clearly establish the modus operandi of the killer.
Although they're unconscious, in other words, they cannot talk, they cannot resist, it's not necessary to bind them up at all. Right, there was no resistance. So that was the fantasy element. The fact that he tied their hands, it's a do not touch me. So that's avoiding intimacy. The fact that he put the ball in the mouth is don't speak. So she becomes an object. He was fearful of women talking, of their mysticism, of touching, of being intimate. And that immediately put me into his mind. I said he would have had some kind of criminal record for rape or burglary or something because he had a criminal sophistication to him. I said he would have at least high school education because he was really sophisticated. That was just the demographics, which is sort of superficial. On a more metaphysical level, I was looking for a very angry man. He was sullen, he was moody. He had aggressive outbursts now and again. He could be very charming in front of people, a real psychopath if he wanted something from them. But inside he was dark. He hated women, really, with a passionate hate for a very sullen, dark, dangerous, wounded animal. That's what I was looking for.
The first victim to be identified, Langiwe Mfeka, had left to attend a job interview with a stranger on April 14, but had never returned home.
I went to the Durban police station and they asked me to describe my sister so they could begin to investigate. I told the police about the stranger who came to our house and left with our sister.
Thanks to Rachel, police now knew how the killer was able to entice his victims into the cane fields. He would prey on young, unemployed women from around the township, promising them that he knew where they could find work. They would set off to walk into Durban by the dusty roads through the growing cane.